You're up, Parisa. All your session now.
Yes.
I'll just check with other section if.
Yes.
Parisa?
Yes, please.
Did you get my email?
Unfortunately, I closed my email.
Because I have a problem. I'm in home office and I have workers here who are installing a solar panel and they have to switch off the electricity in 1 hour. And so I have no Wi-Fi then in 1 hour.
Oh,
So,
okay. I will try to manage it now. I think you will, you have your session. I think you're the second speaker.
okay, great.
Okay, I think
Thank you.
not a problem. You're welcome. Yeah, I would like to start a session. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, eminent speakers, and participants from around the world. It's with great pleasure that we welcome you to Urban Lab 2. We're glad to have you join us in this collaborative platform where we will be engaging in dynamic discussion, knowledge exchange, and collaborative actions to increase the resilience of school buildings as well as vulnerable groups in coping with extreme weather events. So your presence and participations are invaluable to us, and we look forward to your insights and active engagement in this Urban Lab. My name is Parisa Kloos, the Executive Director of Resilient Urban Planning and Development Company based in Germany. It is my privilege to serve as a moderator for Urban Lab 2. And in this lab, we have 8 esteemed speakers from Germany and India representing counterpart countries. And each speaker has 10 to 12 minutes to share with us their valuable experiences and insights. And at the end, we will open the floor for discussions and Q&A session. So one suggestion to save time, you can also drop your questions into the chat box along with your email address. In case we run out of the time, we can write you an email and answer your questions. Quickly reviewing the previous sessions, our opening session and discussions in Urban Lab 1 have been incredibly fruitful with diverse perspectives shared, and cities openly discuss their challenges and potential solutions. Despite our differences, I recognize that we share a common challenge that unites us in pursuing a shared goal, however, in different contexts. While the solutions may be similar, customization is key to address the unique circumstances of each region. So through dynamic discussions and enlightening presentation, we have gained valuable insights into the experiences and approaches of both German and Indian counterparts in tackling challenges. So there is much to learn from each other, including not only solution, we can also learn from our failures, our process, techniques, methodologies, and how we navigate challenges and move beyond them. Building upon our previous discussions in Urban Lab 1, Urban Lab 2 will shift our focus towards planning for action and facilitating city-to-city learning. So the concept of city-to-city learning can be effectively realized through the establishment of strong global partnership, as emphasized in SDG number 17, which promotes partnership for sustainable development. So by fostering collaboration and knowledge exchange between cities and countries, we can harness the power of collective learning and cooperation to tackle complex urban challenges and drive positive change. So through global partnerships, cities can tap into the collective wisdom and experiences of their counterpart around the world. So this collaborative approach can promote mutual learning and foster a supportive environment for continuous improvement and promote innovation and creativity, most importantly, as cities work together to find novel solutions to complex challenges. So city-to-city learning is a powerful tool, in my opinion, for urban development. So by pooling resources, knowledge, and expertise, cities can drive positive change, accelerate progress towards a shared goal, and prepare comprehensive action plans aligned with local context and priorities, of course, and then together drive the implementation of action plans and roadmap, and then monitoring the progress, evaluating outcomes, and adapting the strategies as needed. So the collaborative approach of city-to-city learning can foster a culture of continuous improvement and shared accountability, most importantly, leading to more effective and sustainable urban development outcomes. So now it's time to hear from our distinguished speakers as they share their valuable insights and experiences with us. I'm delighted to begin Urban Lab 2 with Mr. Attar Amir, Commissioner at Srinagar Municipal Corporation and CEO of Srinagar Smart City Ltd. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Amir. Mr. Amir, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, please.
We can't see you though.
I'm just trying to adjust it. Just a second. I'm sorry, there's something wrong with the video of it's not coming over. So I'll
Shall we get back to you?
I think I'll try to fix it up. Maybe we'll move on to the next speaker till then.
Okay, great. So we can have Mr. Christian Hubel from City of Mannheim, Germany, Head of Department of Democracy and Strategies. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Christian. Christian, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Parisa. Dear Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear audience, also good afternoon and a warm welcome from my side here. And also very great thankful for the cooperation partners, Resilient Urban Development and Resilience, Miyamoto, UNICEF, Alpha, Steer India, a lot of corporations who are working out this Urban Thinkers Campus and enabling this great city-to-city exchange and this knowledge exchange. I want to concentrate on why Mannheim is doing knowledge exchange and city-to-city cooperation. In Mannheim, the activities of the city administrations are based on the mission statement, Mannheim 2030. And this mission statement, Mannheim 2030, is based on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This means the global goals of the United Nations, which include the eradication of poverty, responsible production and consumption, but also sustainable cities and cooperation and partnerships. This mission statement was worked out in a big participation process with about 2,500 people from Mannheim. It was worked out for about 12 months. And in the end, we have had this statement, Mannheim 2030, where we are describing how we want to implement the global sustainability goals in Mannheim, but also how we should live in Mannheim and how Mannheim is looking like in 2030. And implementing the sustainable development goals is always meaning three things. Implementing them on the local level, that means in Mannheim, but also thinking and being sensitive what we are doing, what is affecting others in the world. And then on the third level, we are trying to help others to achieve their sustainable development goals. We had then concentrated with the citizenships on 7 strategic goals from the 7 goals. And one of these goal 7 is Mannheim is a role model for international city cooperation between cities. The municipal development policy and responsible consumption is contributing to the global justice and to the sustainable international policy. So that's our duty, that's our pledge, and that's our goal, number 7. And we are doing this with cooperation of the administration, with the citizenships, and we are here for doing this city-to-city cooperation and this knowledge exchange, which we are believing in to make the cities better. And also we are believing on the eye level we have with all our partners all over the world. We are supporting city diplomacy because cities are not acting within their own borders. Usually international foreign policy is a matter of nation states, but we believe that cities can contribute here in a very big way. And so we are trying to entering the global arena to make this city cooperation and the city diplomacy in many ways, like the Urban Thinkers Campus, but also in a traditional town twinning to have school exchange with other cities and to have civic delegation and cultural exchange and trips. We are helping each other in times of needs in both ways. For instance, during COVID, our twin city Shenyang was donating us 100,000 masks for Mannheim, but we were also looking to give disinfection and other things to our partner city in Bydgoszcz in Poland, or we are looking to support Hebron in Palestinian during the COVID pandemic. We are always bringing the people together by also promoting economic exchanges. We have linkages with our startup system, also with Palestine and other cities and regions in the world, because we believe when people are trading, they strive for understanding and they're working together. And through this working together and this knowledge exchange, we are thinking we are contributing also to the peace in the world. When we are saying achieving development goals together, we're trying also to help each other. For instance, we are trying in Kilis, that's near the Syrian border. We are trying to support Syrian refugees to be educated in simple career jobs like barber and other things. So when the war is over and they can get back, that they have a career and they can earn their money on their own. Also, we have water management exchange with Hebron and other things. We believe in this city-to-city exchange because it's a win-win situation. We are also learning a lot, and we believe in the eye level we have with our partners. We are also engaged in many city networks like eCLAY, the Global Parliament of Mayor, the Eurocity, and it's all about having exchanges, having rising the worth of cities in these multi-level governance systems, and also looking for city-to-city cooperation. Why city-to-city cooperation? I mean, who knows best the things and the needs of city than cities itself? And so it means that we are really the ideal partners for having a knowledge exchange on the city level, because we are always looking for what is needed. We are looking about waste management. We are looking about education, about other things. The city know best what the other city is needed. And so we have a better knowledge exchange than having it via the nation states and all the others. Also, the United Nations have recognized that there has to be a change in the multi-governance systems. And so they invite institutions and people to saying, okay, how to start a global conversation about the future of the Organization of the United Nations. And I think also cities have to take their formal place. To make it also practical, what we learned or how cities have helped us during the COVID pandemic, we were overwhelmed by the need to make statements in a very short time about how to reconcile, for instance, religious rights, like the Friday prayers, and to combine social distancing with washing ceremonies, etc. Through WhatsApp groups all over the world, we got very, very instant and very quick received advices from other Muslim communities, what is religion compliant, and so we can pass it to our communities. We also learned a lot about the sense of social communities from other cities, or about the principle of sponge cities, which make heavy rain events more compatible for the urban infrastructure in Mannheim. but we also learned to appreciate our own values. For instance, we are able to go to the tap and fetch drinking water. I mean, in times where still 800 million people have no instant and permanent access to drinking water, that's luxury. And so we are more sensitive also to things that we still have and others don't. We also should be more, I think, fixated in the reflection on what our actual problems are. For instance, when we are looking to 2030, we see that still, so we are working on it very hard, still a third of the pupils who are coming to school are not able to speak the language so that they can follow in school, and they also have motoric problems. And when we say, okay, we still have the children who are born in 2 years, 1/3 of them have problems, and so this leads to poverty and other things. We have big duties here in Mannheim, and I also think personally we have to switch our way of thinking and our politics. And perhaps when we are talking at the moment here in this session also about school buildings and resilience, school buildings in Germany are very expensive. We're spending a lot of money in buildings due to the bureaucracy, but also due to the high standards, which are on the one hand necessary. On the other hand, when you're saying you have XXL standards, and on the other hand, you have less money for educating children, or still some children have no breakfast when they're going to school, you have to rethink this. And so we have to rethink our politics to achieve also our goal that not 1/3 of the pupils is not able to follow in school the lessons while they are having language problems or others. So we have to take a switch in this. Yeah, to make it to a conclusion, I think it's clear that we cannot solve the problems in Mannheim, the climate problems on our own. If we don't think internationally or globally, we can do as much green policy as we want, but if we want to make changes on our own, it's too less. So we have to work together, achieving more together on the global level. If not, we are still confronted with rising temperatures and wild weather conditions. We are believing in the city-to-city cooperations on eye level because we have a knowledge exchange for better solutions and also for achieving the sustainable development goals together. And we want to encourage other cities also to take over more city-to-city cooperation. And so I think we have to do this and encourage them. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian, for nailing down the topic perfectly. Thank you very much. And I should also mention that Mannheim City is also one of the co-organizers of this UTC. Thank you very much for all your support. And we are all the time enjoying working with you. Thank you very much, Christian. But if you have any question from Christian, please drop it in the chat box because he has to leave soon. Thank you very much. So I will move to the next speaker, Mr. Amir. It seems that you could handle your problem. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and my apologies for the technical glitch that was there. First of all, I think, when it comes to our city, it is Srinagar city. It is, in fact, not one of the northernmost cities of India. The geoclimate of this region is very peculiar. The economy as well as the geography of the place is such that the city is inhabited on a river called the River Jhelum. And there are a number of lakes in the city. One of the prominent lakes is the Dal Lake. So by the very origin of the city, it's very much interconnected with the forest, with the aquatic ecosystems, with the water. And when it comes to kind of rethinking and kind of building resilience to the city in terms of overall climate resilience or the the climate change. So there are a lot of initiatives that are going on in the city as of now. And one of the prominent of those is the work that is being taken under the Srinagar Smart City Mission, of which I'm also the CEO for executing the project in the city. So I'll quickly go through some of the initiatives, some of the works that we are doing here. So one is the river that we spoke about, the River Jhelum. So this forms the spine of a city. So we're working heavily on reviving this river, on developing riverfronts, and also developing the economy and socio-cultural heritage that we had very closely associated with this river. So we are building a lot of public spaces. We are improving the course of the river. We are removing a lot of debris and other things that used to go into the river. We're trying to improve the quality of the river while it is traversing through the city. So this forms an integral part of it. Similarly, we're also actively working on the water transport system for Srinagar city, so that using the river and the lake system as a mode of transport evolves. We're looking at an electric based ferry based water transport system in the city. So this is one of the important initiatives that we have taken up. So very closely related to the river is our Dal Lake and the other allied lakes. So their conservation, their restoration, that work is already going on. So our lake used to be infested with the weed of a lot of different kinds. In fact, the lily is an exotic species for this region, and somehow this exotic lily had kind of invaded on the entire lake area, and now this all is being removed and that restoration is happening. Similarly, around the lake we have the lakefront, which was more aligned with movement of the cars than movement of the people. So now we are shifting, we are reorienting the riverfront in such a way that the city and the lake periphery becomes more convenient for people to walk, so that there is less necessity for people to travel on cars while they have more spaces to cycle around and to move around. Another important initiative, which I would say is the most remarkable thing that we're doing right now in the city, is heavy investment on our NMT, the non-motorized transport. So there's a tone of around 80 kilometers in the city. We're making walkways and pedestrian spaces and cycling spaces in the city. Probably this is one of the biggest non-motorized motorized transportation interventions taken up by any city in India. So in one go, so different cities have taken it at different stages, but right now Srinagar city is undergoing a transformation heavily in terms of the pedestrianization. So we have the central business district, which forms our main commercial district of the city. So we are heavily investing on pedestrianizing a lot of these spaces. Many of the markets are being made completely vehicle free, and only pedestrian or cycling movement is being done. In other spaces, other sites, we are doing a lot of investment on building sidewalks and walkways and crossings and others, so that people can walk and experience the city on foot. So to the tone of around, as I was saying, 80 kilometers, and which by our standards and which by the scale of the city is quite immense. So on the fourth point would be that we are again heavily working on is deploying technology in assisting us in building a climate resilient city. For example, the river again. So what we have done is that we have installed real-time water quality monitoring systems on the entire course of the river. So when the river enters the city, we know what is the water quality of different parameters on real-time basis there. As it moves through different portions in the city, as it moves to the commercial district, we know what is happening to the water. Similarly, when it leaves the city, we're now able to know and monitor the water quality. Same goes with our Dal Lake. So on real-time basis, we're able to monitor that. Similarly, we have put in place the air quality monitoring systems. There's a network of it right now being executed in the city, so that air quality is again monitored. Similarly, noise monitoring system is again being implemented right now in the city, so that the noise and decibel levels at different stretches, especially outside hospitals, outside the educational institutions, could be monitored. So that's something again which we are using. Similarly, for other enforcement of traffic, the traffic management. In fact, I would say that in cities like ours, the mobility or the management of the public transportation and transportation in general is extremely important. So we are heavily relying on deploying technology to do that. Similarly, when we are monitoring the status of our water bodies, the extent of our lakes, the encroachment on the lakes, we're using again now heavily the technology GIS-based systems and the satellite imagery to understand what's happening with these aquatic systems and other important biomes within our city. Similarly, when we talk about solid waste management and sewerage, it's a biggest, one of the very important challenges for any city. Now, that's again, we are using some state-of-the-art modern technology of door-to-door segregated collection, and following, every house and every lane has been mapped on GIS-based systems, and we're able to monitor on real-time basis whether our vehicle is going to a particular house or not. Similarly, the sewerage, that is, or the liquid waste that is coming out of our houses, in many parts, this water used to go directly into the water bodies. Now we are again working on interceptors and modular STPs so that this water could be it could be intercepted, it could be treated, and only then released outside. Similarly, we have a lot of our city in which there is not a sewerage system, but every household has a septic tank or a sewerage tank. So we have a mechanism now in the city whereby machines go to every household, suck out the septage from those septic tanks, and that is then taken to fecal sludge treatment plants, where from it gets treated and then finally managed. Similarly, the legacy waste that is in the city, we have around 10 lakh metric tons of legacy waste. Now we are in process of removal of that legacy waste. It is in the sanitary landfills. We want to open up the sanitary landfill sites, do the biomining of all the whatever waste is there, and remove those sites from those places. Though all these things are at a different stages of execution, but the whole idea is that the city gets a holistic strategy, holistic plan of action in which we work on multiple fronts. So when it comes to the broader challenges, I would say that there's a lot to do with the mindset. So these days, there's a lot of discussion in our cities that whether a footpath should be wider or we should widen the road. So while we were executing all these non-motorized transportation infrastructure projects in the city. So I would say a lot of this has to do with the mindset. A city has to understand how it's going to function and what its priorities are. Are we making cities for cars? Are we making cities for people? Are we making cities livable? So that thing has to be driven through. I would say still there's a lot of our political class or a lot of our people who are maybe the social influencers or in general, they still not at that stage where they can accept that having a nice wide footpath is actually an indicator that a city is really good and livable and walkable. So similarly, on other aspects of say looking at resilient and adaptive strategies, I would say that taking people on board, building that capacities of stakeholders is extremely important. And I have personally seen that the demonstration effect is something which is actually very powerful. If you're doing something, you plan something for a whole city, when you try to execute it and implement it in one part of the city, one particular portion of the city, if it works, that becomes an example for scaling it up. So, and we have been working on that very strategy. We have taken certain portion of the city where we are doing this work intensively. And then again, this becomes a lab for us also to understand what works on ground and what doesn't. And also it becomes a tool for us to demonstrate it to general public that this is how the city should be. We had one very important market in a city. It's called a Polo View market. So it used to be just adjacent to a Polo View ground. So very important market. So this was the first market that we took up for intervention. We said we'll completely pedestrianize it. So the day we had started the exercise, in fact, all the shopkeepers and the owners of the properties, they had come out, they're saying that who will come to buy to our market if you don't allow cars to move? If somebody cannot park a vehicle outside my store, outside a shop, so how am I going to get customers? So that's what we started to tell them. It's not about cars, it's about how convenient it is for people to come to your shop. Now that market is ready, and in fact we are able to, maybe another 5-10 days we'll be inaugurating that market. It's the first pedestrian market, pedestrian space, completely pedestrian space in our city. And now anybody walks through that market, you see this is really amazing. And those shopkeepers have themselves now adopted it so well, and they're really happy about it. Yes, Acha, this is how this was going to be. And now this has helped us to expand it to other portions of the city as well. Thank you. That was from my side.
Thank you very much for this impressive initiatives that you already shared with us. It's great to see that you are using also a holistic approach to solve your problem. And because we run over the time, I will actually move to the next speaker, and I will get back to you in the discussion session. Thank you very much. I think the next speaker, Mr. Abed Rashid, is not there yet, but I will move to the next speaker. Our next distinguished speaker is Mr. Peter Seidel. Mr. Seidel is project officer for South Asia in the International Department of Caritas Germany. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Seidel. Mr. Seidel, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm audible? Yes, okay, great. It's nice to have the opportunity to be in such a panel and to discuss a strategic point of earthquake related increase of safety. Caritas Germany is, to explain a little the background, one of the biggest NGOs in Germany. It's an umbrella organization of various hundreds of social wing organizations of Catholic Church actors. And for the last 120 years, this Caritas Germany Association is in close cooperation with government institutions in Germany at all levels in the field of social welfare and development. So what I would like to focus is the question, well, what is the role and responsibility and the possibilities of action of an NGO in a setup like Germany or maybe like India? As mentioned, Caritas Germany, with more than 500,000 employees, means 5 lakh employees all over Germany, is a very big player in the German welfare setup. Also in Mannheim. And this cooperation between state and NGOs in Germany has a long history. It goes till times of Bismarck, and it's based on the principle of subsidiarity. The idea behind this, why should the state or the government do something what NGOs can do better? It might be cheaper, it might be more effective, the coverage might be better to rely on NGOs than to do it through government organizations. So subsidiarity principle basically means whatever can be done at a lower level, let it happen at a lower level. Means what people themselves can do, it's also a question of dignity, let them do it themselves. What communities, what neighborhoods can do, let it be done by them. What civil society organizations can do, like NGOs, like other voluntary organizations, let them do the job. And only if they are not able to do it, then it becomes a question of the government and the public administration. So the roles should be clear to say, well, who has which responsibility and who has which rights in front of whom. Not everything has to be done by the state. I think that is one of the learning of the socialist experiences, to put too much emphasis on state-run activities and to reduce activity of civil society might have quite negative effects. On the other hand, definitely certain activities need to be done by the government, and NGOs cannot just replace the government. There should be a complementary sharing of roles and responsibilities. So if I look in Germany, well, Caritas in the social welfare area is one of the big players. If we look at the field of disaster preparedness, disaster relief, of course, other actors come into the picture. I'm happy, I saw on the list that we will have people from the voluntary fire brigades or the fire brigades in Germany, which are another very important player in the German setup. We call them voluntary fire brigades in many cases because their history is based on voluntary experiences, people joining together, starting to say, well, fires in a city, to control them from the Middle Ages onwards is a collective challenge. So people have to join together to fight fires and to get prepared for that. Of course, the government and the state and the municipalities join in these efforts and support these civil society initiatives. And we, maybe in Germany, have one of the strongest systems of these kind of fire brigades. And they are an excellent example of civil society organizations taking care of a joint challenge. And these organizations do much more than just fighting against fires. They have youth organization preparing people. They have women's organization. They have, in many cases, they have orchestras or brass bands supporting the awareness in the society, organizing festivals to point out the need for joint activities on disaster preparedness. And they are, as I started to say, a very important part of organized civil society, assuming the responsibility to tackle joint problems. Well, Caritas, we say the fire brigades are part of the so-called blue light whirlybird family. Means first line supporters in case of disasters, in case of fires, in case of floods, because they're not just fighting fires, they also, if there is a traffic accident, a bigger way, if there are floods, other problems, these fire brigades also attend these kind of disasters. The social welfare organizations like Caritas come into the picture normally only afterwards, if it's the question of rehabilitation, or they come into the picture before that in general community mobilization, community organizing. In Germany, we say Gemeinwesen, to organize communities, to make people participate in urban aspects or in rural aspects. So this kind of mobilizing people and motivating them to run parallel or complementary projects, activities with the government progress is one of the important points, which I think is also very relevant in the Indian context. What is the task of Indian NGOs in this setup? Well, we are, as a foreign department of Caritas Germany, supporting organizations in South Asia also. In India, there is a Caritas India, there is a Caritas Nepal, there are at regional levels so-called social service society. Also in Srinagar is a Catholic social service society affiliated to Caritas India and to this international network of social welfare organizations, and mobilizing people, empowering people, animating people to be active parts, active citizens within the whole setup is one of their main challenges. So this cooperation between government, between social society organizations like this church-run organization is, I think, the very key point. And looking into the earthquake preparedness, the question is who should play which kind of role? For many years, these kind of NGOs were not taking up the point of earthquake preparedness. It was understood that this is a task of the government. They should issue the building standards. They have the task to control it. It's the architects who learn this in the universities, how to build earthquake safe or earthquake resistant houses. This is not a job for NGOs. With upcoming and increasing disasters in this field, well, the last very huge earthquake in Nepal around 10 years ago, the earthquakes also in Kashmir, also make these organizations to reflect whether they have a role in earthquake preparedness also. The whole discussion about disaster preparedness in a wide range started more than 20 years back. And in India, the context was more or less focusing on floods and on cyclones. Now, looking into earthquakes, the situation is slightly different than floods and cyclones because you have all these component of architecture, urban planning and control, which definitely is not a task of the NGOs. But NGOs can work in the whole field of raising awareness. Looking into schools, for example, different NGOs have different strengths in influencing, giving informations to students, to schools, being invited as lecturers to give some information through experts. Giving information is one thing, and getting people organized is another thing. We have heard already that in India you have this nice legal provision for school management committees with the idea to make people participate, make the parents participate, the students participate, the teachers and the public administration in assuring that the quality of education is well taken care of. Of course, the building standards are also part of this quality. So to make these school management committees functional, to motivate people to participate and actively suggest improvements and take up also their obligations to do something. Sometimes parents themselves can support in improving structures. not only cleaning the school grounds, but also questioning the safety of the construction standards. Now, the higher the awareness, the more pressure, the more joint ideas will come up to improve this structure. Well, for me personally, after this earthquake in Nepal, in the Sindhu-Palchok area, a whole city of Chautara was flattened. And it was horrible to see the scenario there. Afterwards, traveling to Darjeeling, you look at the town of Darjeeling in similar conditions, what would happen with an earthquake in Darjeeling? Well, we are actually in touch for some years now with the local wing of our association called Anugalaya in Darjeeling also, to define what can be done jointly with the local municipality in improving the safety of the population in case of earthquakes. So public awareness rising, for example, joint risk analysis, make the people analyze where are the risk factors and where are resources having themselves or from the community or from the government to tackle these challenges. That is one of the key tasks, and build on this participatory risk analysis. You can then define with the whole society, organized groups of citizens, neighborhoods, municipality administration, what is the best way to go ahead? As mentioned at the beginning, these fire brigades, voluntary fire brigades, are a very interesting experience in Germany. And I think to discuss a little further, what could be learnings for India in this field might be quite fruitful. I remember once I met a missionary in South America, and he went to the jungles of the Amazonas, and the first thing he did was organizing a voluntary fire brigade in the German style, more or less. So this kind of discussion about voluntary fire brigades, what is the role of volunteers, what is the role of civil society organizations, and how can this be supported and strengthened institutionally by the government? That I feel is a very interesting and important point to discuss. Thank you very much. And if you have some questions, please.
Thank you very much for sharing with us this insights, these valuable insights. And of course, you mentioned this valuable point that how government and civil society should work together, especially in the disaster time. And there is a question there in the chat box, but I will get back to you in the Q&A session. So I will move to the next speaker. We have next distinguished speaker, Professor Saswati Paik from Azim Premji University. So please join me in welcoming Professor Paik. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I'm very much honored by this kind of forum where so many eminent speakers are talking about multiple different dimensions. I work in Azim Premji University where I teach some of the courses. I will try to make a brief and short presentation in terms of my field experience, where I have been into for more than 12 or 14 years. And most of the times when I work in this field, I go to the field along with my students. And just a brief introduction about this work, that in India, more than 1.4 million schools are there, around 15 lakh schools are there. And my workspace is mostly in the remote areas, including city and rural areas, but mostly I work in the rural areas. Whenever I go to the field, I find, as my previous speaker was talking about, how much the schools are involved, the school stakeholders are involved, that is remaining as a question mark still in India. So just to give you a quick view of this, can I share my screen, please? Is it possible?
Yes, of course, Professor.
It is saying it is disabled.
Not yet. Now you can, I think, share your.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much. Yeah. I hope my screen is visible to you.
Yes.
So I just want to share a couple of things that when any disaster happens or anywhere which is hazard prone, we all know that India is very much hazard prone area, and there are multiple areas with multiple different hazards. Where the schools are located, most of the times the media publishes the kind of damage happens in the locality, kind of damage happens in the society, in the settlement, but rarely we find that any media coverage about the schools, how many schools are completely in a very bad condition, or the schools access in a very bad condition. So I was trying to figure out how many areas are having these kinds of issues. So just to map what kind of hazards we are facing across different states, it is little bit old data, but it is still relevant because we have multiple different kinds of issues. If you look at the top area, it is showing the kinds of hazards we are having in India. I'll not concentrate more on these things. I'll just want to highlight some of the areas which are most important, because if you look at our Indian schools, most of our schools are government schools or government aided schools. Some are those which are private unaided schools, or there are other management schools also. Now, these coming to the government schools, many government schools are not at all prepared in terms of how to bridge the learning gap if something happens, and this learning gap doesn't come because of the destruction of the whole school building or something like that. I'm coming from a kind of perspective that there are different kinds of access for the school children. One kind of access is your physical access, whether the child is going to the school regularly, whether that particular pathway is fine for the child to access the school. And second thing is whether the building is comfortable for the child. When it comes to the hazard, sometimes the building collapse, or building is completely in a different kind of situation, so that the children cannot access the building. That is a worst situation, I would say. But it might be possible, like in Himalayan region, many landslides happen. And if landslides happen, mostly I have been into Uttarakhand kind of areas where the road itself is blocked. How the children will go to the school? Now, when these things come up, nothing is getting highlighted in the media or any other areas, that children are not able to attend their school. School might be running as per their own calendar, but children are not there in the school because of the other issues. Similarly, if you look at the flood, it is not necessarily the school is flooded, but at the same time children are stuck in some particular village nearby, where the village is flooded but not necessarily the school area is flooded. Now, how to make a resilience? The resilience will come when we can only ensure that these children are getting regular access to the other like the other children who are having a complete academic year. So when I go to different spaces and I have been into different field areas, so what I can see that there are two kinds of hazards. One kind of hazard in that is natural hazard. Another is a man-made hazard, which are unconflict kind of issues. It might be also a fire or in anything which is developed by man. So now when we are coming to this hazards thing, when the school is getting affected, school is in the school premises, children are already having these two kinds of problems, as I already have said. One is physical access, one is social access. Many children in India are also facing the social access because of the societal cultural issues. But when it comes to the physical access is not necessarily confined within the building. It is also on the road. It is also the access from their house to the school building. Now, there are short-term and the long-term impacts. During this pandemic time, we came to know about this thing that learning, there is loss of learning. Loss of learning is actually happening in many of these hazard-prone areas, day in and day out. There are areas which are hazard-prone, where there are seasonal hazards. And if you imagine that any particular area, since July, August to September, October, that is the monsoon season in India, many flood prone areas as well as many landslide prone areas are having this kind of hazard consistently, and year after year it is the same problem the children are facing. They don't have the access to the school. Many of the children are not able to go to the school. Now, who will talk about that kind of resilience, that how to make it up? It is not only to go to school, how to make up the learning loss which is happening every year. So suppose one child, if I look at a typical urban child where there is no hazard as such, and they are comfortable in going to school, so probably they are getting 8 to 9 months of their schooling. Whereas another child who is sitting in this kind of hazard prone area may get maximum 5 months or 6 months of schooling. Who will compensate this loss? Just now Peter was talking about this integrating this SMC. I was actually talking about these things many times in different forums. Why not to strengthen and make the resilience among the school stakeholders, including the school management committee, local people who know better about this local context and the kind of things which can be done, which could be appropriate for the particular area. So there are many facts we know, which there are some facts which we don't know, are how many schools are located in those hazard prone areas, where exactly are those schools located. So do we have the maps of these areas where the schools are in vulnerable position, and there are possibilities that children will lose their schooling days because of some kind of hazard? Second part is, do we have a map of schools for every state and district? So some of the states and the districts in India, they have done a very good job that they have pointed out where the schools are located, but not necessarily for all the states and the districts. The school maps are not located. Schools are not located on the maps, especially in the rural area and the remote areas. Second part of the problem is how many children get affected by natural disasters or safety hazards in schools every year. Do we have a proper mechanism of tracking that how many children are getting affected every year, how many children drop out due to these kinds of hazards? Everything cannot be just interpreted in terms of the poverty or the socioeconomic condition. There are areas where the natural hazards also keeping a kind of hindrance in front of the children. Next part of this thing,
you have 2 minutes left.
okay,
Yeah?
I'll wind up. What is the mechanism to identify them and bring them back to school, and how are the school safety plans prepared? And Peter has already talked about that. I'm not repeating that. Are the school leaders aware of these school safety norms and disaster management? And what is the level of awareness among the school community? So my humble request to these all eminent speakers, that if we can think of mapping of the schools and identifying these areas where exactly the problem is coming from, and instead of getting into only discussion about the school building, if we can think about the learning loss of the children in these areas continuously, and we can figure out how to bring these children back to the education system. And these are some of the areas where I just wanted to highlight that if something happens here, how the children from this village to the other side of the village, how they will go and they will attend their school. So yeah, so I'll stop here, and if there is any question, I would like to take those questions. I'll be happy to give some clarifications and answers to the question. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you mentioned the really important things. It's not just school buildings, but also the environment, how the kids reach to the schools. I mean, accessibility, and if something happened, how they can go to the school safely without any problem. So this is something that we have to also pay attention on. And yeah, thank you very much for your insights. And we will get back to you in the Q&A session. Thank you very much. So I would like to move to the next speaker. We have now Mr. Syed Abid Rashid Shah, our next distinguished speaker from CEO of, he is the CEO of Jammu and Kashmir Economic Reconstruction Agency. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Rashid. Mr. Rashid, please, the floor is yours. You're muted. Or no? Cannot hear you.
Hear me? Am I audible?
Now, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carissa, for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to speak to all of you. At the very outset, I would like to place on record appreciation and gratitude to all of you I was just going through the papers of today's event, and I saw that there is a distinguished body of ladies and gentlemen who have done tremendous work in this area. Where I come from India, the northernmost part of India, which is Jammu and Kashmir. We are a completely hill-locked state, a union territory. We are a multi-hazard risk disaster union territory. We are an area which has seen Richter scale 6 and more earthquakes. We are an area which has seen floods. We are an area which has seen flash floods, urban flooding in major disaster situations. You name it, and we have that disaster. In this context, therefore, it becomes very important for me to share with all of you as to what the problems of disaster risk resilience in education sector in a developing country are, in a country like ours are. At the very outset, like I said, we are a multi-hazard risk area. We are a Himalayan ecology. We are a biodiversity hotspot. We have seen it all in terms of disaster and disaster management. The last major disaster that we had in Jammu and Kashmir was the floods of 2014, where hundreds and thousands of people were impacted. Millions and millions of dollars was lost immediately in the aftermath of the floods, and millions of dollars after, in the long run, of what the floods did to us. We have had massive earthquakes of the Richter scale 6 and above in 2005, affecting again thousands of lives. And the worst, may I add, impact of these disasters has been areas which are inhabited by underprivileged, by those who are not at the top of the hierarchy in terms of wealth generation. And therefore, we must take a very, very clear and deep look at how these discussions impact the little boy and little girl who will be impacted some way or the other by these discussions that you're holding today and by your interventions. That's the human face of what you're doing today. And that is why gratitude and congratulations are in order for all of you. Because what you decide here today may probably throw up an idea which will impact somebody sitting on my line of control here on a hill. In the next disaster situation, some bright idea from here implemented on the ground there might lead to saving human lives and saving the future of that young kid, boy or girl. So therefore, this is a very important event that we are doing. Any disaster situation has two major impacts on the education sector. And my own experience with dealing with disasters as a public administration professional, there are two major impacts, one in the short term and one in the long run. In the short term, you have lack of access to schools. In the short term, your school might be marooned or brought down by the earthquake. So therefore, you have complete lack of access, which decreases the number of schooling hours, which decreases your immediate learning ability, which creates problems. And in the long run, which is our main concern, it leads to a major learning gap. In a globalized world, imagine your school being marooned for a couple of months where you're not able to go to school and learn. It has a major impact on the overall psychological well-being of that kid. So that long-term impact is very, very harmful to us because it impacts the learning outcomes of the child. I am going to throw up ideas, certain ideas, which I think are extremely useful in my own experience as a public administrator here in J&K over the last decade plus, which I have found to be very, very useful. We are implementing in the Economic Reconstruction Agency a $250 million project, which is a disaster risk resilience project of the World Bank. It is called Jhelum Tawi Flood Recovery Project. As you can clearly make out, it was conceptualized after the devastating floods of 2014. Education is one of the core focus areas that we have worked in, of how to build disaster risk resilient schools for these kids who were impacted by these floods or by the earthquakes. Here is my learning, having built these schools, 100+ schools, based on building as learning aid technologies, based on disaster risk resilient schooling, based on, I don't have the photographs right now, but I will share them with you in due course of time. You will find that we have achieved 3 major outcomes because of what we have done. One, the school dropouts in remotest of areas in Jammu and Kashmir has decreased because of how we have made these schools, how these schools have become extremely attractive in terms of a place where the kid can go to and enjoy himself or herself rather than become very mundane. So we have attracted a lot of schools. The education enrollment roll has shot up after these schools were formulated. Number 2, these are small islands of hope for everybody in the overall education sector, where these become exemplars of what we should possibly do in building disaster risk resilient structures. Number 3, incorporating local wisdom is extremely important. We cannot be extrapolating solutions, technological solutions, engineering solutions that might be possibly adept for Germany in, let us say, in a plain Gangetic plain of our country, India, or in a Himalayan ecology of, say, India or Nepal. So everywhere local wisdom and onboarding that local wisdom is extremely crucial. Sometimes we miss that bus, and we are doing this at our own peril. Wherever we have these, for example, I will quote the example of the Uri 2005 earthquake, which was again a major earthquake of 6.5 Richter scale plus. Whichever school was formed in that area was built in that area with some local wisdom and masonry, which was disaster risk resilience learned over centuries. For example, stonework masonry was a major intervention that those people in the old ages incorporated in their buildings. Whichever school had that survived that earthquake and did not incur major damage. On the contrary, wherever we use brick and mortar, it came tumbling down like a pack of cards. So therefore, local wisdom. Number 2, there is a resource gap between the developed world and the developing world. In our country, there is a massive resource gap at times, as also a knowledge gap where you would like the best global practices to be incorporated. So therefore, there has to be some kind of a systematized measure of sharing of knowledge, sharing of best practices, which are incorporated through the globe. And therefore, this is possibly one small step we are taking in that direction of where we can pick up the best practices in a crucial arena like this. Number 3, doing something of this monumental magnitude, which has impact of this scale on human lives, immediate impact on human lives, lives of young kids, has to always be a collaborative. Someone's mic is on. May I request the mic to be shut down? Has to be a collaborative effort between multilateral agencies. In our case, right now, we are implementing this World Bank project. Multilateral agencies like the UNICEF, like World Urban Thinkers Campus, Sphere India. This is something of a collaborative effort. It cannot be operated on in silos. We can't operate in our own respective pockets in the world and think that we will be arriving at this solution. So therefore, there has to be a concrete roadmap of this collaboration, of this cooperation between various agencies across the globe, in developed countries, in developing countries, so that we can possibly curate all these solutions, technological solutions, to our own basic requirements, to our own basic, should I say, customized requirements of solutions for disaster risk resilient buildings. What are the strategies that urban planners and policymakers can adopt? Considering climate change, which is a pressing issue in our part of the world, as in Europe, everywhere, basically. We might possibly need to upscale our efforts also to factor in the concepts of climate change, of how they're impacting education, how they're impacting schools, how they're impacting livelihood generation across areas which will be impacted in due course of time, and impacted we all will be for sure, one day or the other. Also, my final point is that there has got to be a sustained effort at having some funding patterns chalked out easily. I understand that UNICEF is doing phenomenal work in our part of the world, in South Asia, Southeast Asia, but we possibly need to upscale involvement rather than just knowledge sharing by way of certain funding requirements where you could possibly fund certain gaps, as in countries which are probably not in a space to fund these concepts, space to fund. It takes a lot of funding, particularly in parts like ours, in Himalayan ecologies, to build a school which is particularly disaster resilient. So therefore, there has got to be, we must think about it. All of it takes money, that funding. And my last point to all of you, gentlemen and ladies, will be that there has got to be some upskilling of the human resource, because wherever we have multi-hazard risk disasters in our country, or let's say in our part of the world, in Asia, in Southeast Asia, and South Asia, we've always had this impact of poor skilling, where we need our laborers, where we need our masonry, where we need our technicians to be probably skilled up to global standards in order to withstand disasters of that nature. These were my limited points. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak to all of you. And I also, at the conclusion, congratulate each one of you for doing this phenomenal work that you all do for not just your own countries, but collectively. We are incidentally hosting the G20. We are the presidency of the G20 in the country, in the world right now. And we have labeled it, our catchline is one world, one earth, one family. So therefore, what you are doing probably in Germany today is going to have an impact, like I said, on the young little kid in somewhere in Jammu and Kashmir, somewhere in the Himalayan ecology of Nepal or India. So therefore, congratulations are in order. Thank you very much. Lovely speaking to all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for accepting our invitation, Mr. Abed Rashid. Yeah, you nailed the important and key messages down perfectly. Thank you very much. And I especially like the point that you mentioned, incorporating local wisdom is significantly important. This is a really important topic. And of course, you mentioned many important things that we have to collaboratively solve the challenges and of course, trying to collaborate effectively to solve the problems. Thank you very much for your intervention. Thank you. I see Ramez Ahmad already raised hand, but I will go to the next speaker, and at the end we can open the session for the Q&A since we are running out of the time. Our next speaker will be Mr. Deep Raj Kanetia. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing wrongly, you can correct me. Project Director and Samagra Shiksha, Jammu and Kashmir, Department of School Education. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Deep. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am, for your introduction. Since I have joined very late, so I'm not much to the people who have spoken over it. I have just listened Secretary Tourism JNK sir, and I'll just be briefing about what we are doing in the schools as a school safety measures. Children spend a considerable amount of time in their schools whether it is when they start their journey from the home and then back to the schools. And during that period, they are they are exposed to risks of abuse, violence, disasters, health concerns, and other forms of risk to their safety that arise from the location, their location to the schools. So in Jammu and Kashmir, we have a varied topography which varies from the valley of the Kashmir to the hills of the Jammu, and we have the snowbound areas where we have temperature ranging from -15-20 degree to 45 degrees centigrade, 45 degree in the hot zones. So there are a lot of concerns with regard to the safety of the our children, and with that, for the planners also to plan the building according to the conditions in the areas. In that regard, I'll say that our girls and the children with the special needs, they are most prone to the school safety because they lack the basic facilities. So in order to see that these children's we have the safety measure in the school, the Ministry of Education, Government of India has issued a set of guidelines for the school safety, which serves as a benchmark that what we are required to see that the children are safe and secure and have a better learning environment in the school. The children can learn to their potentials only if they are not feeling insecure in the schools. So these guidelines issued by the ministry have been drafted and further documented by us in association with the UNICEF. And such a wonderful document, we have printed around 90,000 copies and distributed in the school. I'm happy to share that this school safety document was released by our Chief Secretary J&K during one such function, and we have ensured that those document reaches, and then we have also conducted the orientation and training of our teachers in association with the UNICEF so that the basic concept of the safety are taught to our students and the teachers as well. So I'll say that the IC material, training modules and program documents have been given to the schools. From our point of view, we think that it is important that school safety is ingrained into the education system as prerequisite. Starting from the school, building to the child's travel to school and to their home, we need to train non-teaching staff also, as well as our engineers to make school building disaster resilient and ensure physical safety. I wish to see each and every one of us to take school safety seriously and make it their business. Teachers, trainers, non-teaching staff, curriculum developers, even the engineers, contractors, and as rightly said by the sir who was just speaking before me, that our masons, we need to train them, we need to train our laborers so that the building they construct are disaster prone, and we are able to ensure that our children are safe and secured in the school. So I will request that let us work hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, to ensure that every children in our schools, whether it is government or private, is safe from harm. So that is our goal, motive, and initiative which we are taking to the schools so that our children are safe and secure in the school. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much that you shared that there is a guideline for school safety, and we have to also ensure physical safety for the kids, not only in school building, but also the environment that they are walking through to reach to their school. Thank you very much. I will get back to you in the next session, in the Q&A session. So I would like to move to the next speaker. We have another distinguished speaker, Ms. Luisa Moos from Mannheim Youth Fire Brigades. So Ms. Luisa, welcome to this Urban Lab. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I will share my screen. Okay. First of all, thank you for being on the agenda of the Urban Thinkers Campus and the opportunity to present the Youth Fire Brigade Mannheim, which is my pleasure. My name is Luisa Moos. I oversee youth education at the Fire Brigade City of Mannheim. During the next 10 to 12 minutes, I'm going to present you insights on our organization, the Youth Fire Brigade Mannheim. The topics I am going to speak about are the Youth Fire Brigade Mannheim's vision, mission and objectives, some interesting facts and figures of our organization, the distribution of the individual departments. Furthermore, I will share the purpose of Mannheim's Youth Fire Brigade, certain opportunities as well as challenges we face as an organization. And last, I'm going to give you some impressions with some work examples. In order to provide clarity and orientation into our organization, we developed the vision in the Youth Fire Brigade. We are excited to help others take responsibility and stand up for each other. That implicates the most important values we think are important and we would like to strengthen. The willingness to help, a strong sense of responsibility, to stand up for each other and stand together. We firmly believe that creating awareness and strengthen these values is having an important impact on their development and growing up to adults. With our concepts and offerings to children and young people, we are focusing on our mission to prepare children and young people to become active firefighter from 18 years of age. To approach young people to join our organization, to motivate them to develop themselves are our main objectives in order to support our mission and vision. I would like to continue with fact and figures around our organization. First, we will see the Youth Fire Brigade, followed by the Children's Group. The children and young people are between 10 and 17 years old. Beginners are coming from the Children's Group as well from outside. We learned that our existing members can motivate friends to join us. Social media presence and live demonstrations during public events create awareness and curiosity to join us. In 2022, the Youth Fire Brigade in Mannheim counted up to 144 children and young people. 108 male members and 36 female members shows an increasing number of girls joining the Youth Fire Brigade. The city of Mannheim has 8 Youth Fire Brigades. They are distributing according to districts. Each group is led by a Youth Fire Brigade warden, and in addition, each group needs a support team around 5 people. All in all, we need to spend certain efforts to keep the numbers stable and our volunteers motivated and committed. Let's continue with numbers around the Children's Group. The Children's Group was founded and established after the Youth Fire Brigade just a couple of years ago. It is called Löschlöwen, which is hard to translate into English. It sounds nice in German. I would like to translate with fire lions, as they want to be shown as brave as a lion. We are aiming at children aged 6 to 9 years. The children's group is a subgroup of the Youth Fire Brigade, so the youth warden is also responsible here. In 2022, there were a total of 65 children who are members of the children's group of the Mannheim Fire Brigade. Not every department in the district of Mannheim having a children's group. In Mannheim, there are 4 departments offering a children's group in the Youth Fire Brigade. Let's have a look onto the distribution of the individual departments around the city of Mannheim. The groups are decentralized according to the district of Mannheim. Reason for that is mainly the fire station, which is close to the place the children live. As already mentioned, there are children groups only in few districts, mainly because of little demand or lack of supporting volunteers. Training concepts are centralized. The same goes for planning and coordination of extraordinary training events and common leisure events or camps. The slide I'm going to share with you is about the scope of Youth Fire Brigade activities. Look into the scope of activities of Youth Fire Brigade activities. I would like to come back on our mission, which is the focus of our youth work on preparation of young people to become an active firefighter from 18 years of age. The activities of the Youth Fire Brigade are varied. The children and young people are not deployed in operations, as only adults can do this. The Children's and Youth Fire Brigade is about doing work for young people, meaning they should benefit from that. The activities are part of the youth welfare, for example, outdoor activity, camps, excursions, as an important part of a typical mindset of a firefighter. Educate in basic skills, such as learn how to make an emergency call and provide first aid. As well, an ongoing preparation for future active service with firefighter knowledge. As usual, in running a non-profit organization exclusively with volunteers, there are opportunities and challenges. I have listed the most relevant ones from my perspective. Opportunities, an attractive offer for young people, where besides others, imparting values and skill and social skills are in focus. Our kids learn to raise awareness among otherwise uninvolved populations. We actively practice integration and diversity, keeping our young people motivated and engaged in our organization, and we achieve a sustainable succession planning within the fire brigade and disaster management. And with that, we support sustainable fire and disaster prevention as a responsibility of the city of Mannheim. However, we also have to deal with certain challenges. We certainly see a competition in leisure activities for young people. The school demands are increasing and taking time away from voluntary activities. As we are targeting all young people, it appears that social differences makes integration difficult. We have to work against too traditional and conservative image of the fire service in the society. And finally, not to forget the challenge of keeping young people involved for a long period of time. For sure, there might be more to mention. However, having in mind to work successful with them is what will keep us busy, also happy and appreciated responsible leaders. Finally, I will spend the remaining time to share some impressions and pictures with you. Here, with this event during last year's hot summer, the Youth Fire Brigade took an active part in sustainability and protecting our environment. As you can see, this event also provided fun to the team and made them also proud. See how concentrated they worked. Once a year, there's a kind of exam where theoretical and practical firefighter skill are officially tested and the young people are awarded. It contains an individual test and also a test for the fire crew. Die Leistungsschwanger, how the performance medal is called, is the highest award a young firefighter can get. Same here, they are very concentrated and engaged. What makes the Youth Fire Brigade guys proud for sure is an annual common training with the fire brigade. For them, it is nearly real firefighters' work. See how the Löschlöwen, do you remember the name, are busy, not with handicraft work and learn to work and help each other in the team. Useful learning not only for future firefighters, how to use tools and how different material can be. It includes also safety rules at work. Important for building team competencies and network, a great experience for our youngsters which are close to their promotion to firefighters. I'm now at the end of my presentation. I hope I could provide some valuable insights on our organization and the work we do, maybe even some inspirations you can take away. Any question you might have or which might come up, please let me know via email and I'm happy to answer. Contact details see on this slide.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luisa, for this impressive activities that you are doing, especially empowering the youth to not only encounter the fire disaster, but also the other challenges that might appear in the cities. Thank you very much. We will get back to you if anybody has any question. And I would like to move to the last speaker. Our next distinguished speaker is Major General Manoj Kumar Bindel, former Executive Director of National Institute of Disaster Management from the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Bindel. Please, the floor is yours. You're muted.
Thank you, Ms. Paisa, for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here among such panelist fellow members and all the distinguished participants who are there. I will cover mostly the institutional mechanism that is present in India and how it is helping us in ensuring school safety during disasters. So I will be also talking about how an institutional mechanism, how a governance mechanism and governance issues put in the proper place can actually help in ensuring school safety issues, whether while the children are proceeding from the home to the school, at the school, or while coming back from the school, because school safety encompasses all three factors. What we have is that India has a National Disaster Management Act of 2005, which has mandated that every department must make their own disaster management plan for their respective departments and ministries. Similarly, the Right to Education Act of 2009 mandates free education to all children up to the age of 14 and also mandates school safety as a major concern. The National Disaster Management Authority, which is the apex disaster management authority of the India, has also taken out the guidelines for school safety in 2016 based on the directions of the government, which lays down what all actions need to be taken by various stakeholders to ensure school safety in the India. And these measures which have been given are universal in nature and can be used by any school or by any authorities anywhere, and it will give good results. What is the mechanism that we have? The mechanism is that it has made the Right to Education Act, the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan of the government initiative. Both of them had been brought together in under one framework, and both of them have laid a strong focus on disaster management. So as a result, the state disaster management authorities need to work closely with the state education department to support the school safety efforts at the state level. And they have to co-opt senior officials of the Department of Education at the state and at the district level as part of the state and district disaster management authorities, SDMAs and DDMAs, we call them, for promotion of safe schools. In addition, it also talks about a school safety advisory committee, which should be formed to advise the education department on the subject. So this will ensure that school safety can be practically promoted through convergent actions by the state and the district disaster management authorities and the education machinery at the state and the district level. The district education officer must ensure that the recognition certificate which is issued under his signature is issued only to those schools that comply with safety norms laid out in the building codes. And these compliances needs to be monitored on a regular basis. Every district also needs to designate the block education officer or any other official as appropriate in that district for overseeing and facilitating the school safety at the block level. So there is a mechanism which is existing with defined roles and responsibilities to ensure school safety at all levels, whether it be government schools or private schools. The school management committee needs to be made responsible. That is already given in the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan initiative of the Government of India, needs to be made responsible for taking on the safety agenda at the community and the school level. And the school management committee needs to be sensitized and oriented on their expected role. So there is a need that every school needs to identify and develop a cadre of peer educators, trainers for ensuring that safety messages, do's and don'ts for different disasters, procedures and protocols reach each and every student in the school. These peer educators can be trained through the National Cadet Corps, National Scouts and Guide camps, or by the Red Cross or any other agency as deemed fit by the district authorities. So planning starts at the district level, and this links with the district level disaster management efforts. So the district disaster management plan, which is mandated in the Disaster Management Act of 2005, needs to include the school safety as part of the plan, so that they as it is planned for school buildings to serve as emergency shelter locations in the immediate aftermath of a disaster. So they need to make sure that the school safety is given the due attention. They need to include the DDMPs, I'm talking about district disaster management plans, district level baseline of schools, segregated data, then proximity of emergency and crisis service agencies, capabilities, and consequently their expected response time. The physical capacity of the school infrastructure and the facilities to resist any known hazards that are relevant in the local context. And all this information needs to be available to everyone. Side by side, planning needs to be done at the school level, which should be inclusive and ongoing. So the existing planning processes and protocols at the school level need to be adapted to adequately include the safety concerns. For private and unaided schools, the National Accreditation Board for Education and Training needs to monitor safety aspects. In addition, as per the DM Act, the DDMAs, District Disaster Management Authorities, needs to monitor all school buildings for their compliance with building codes. So the plan that is made out needs to have short-term interventions, both non-structural and structural, long-term interventions, again, both non-structural and structural, training plan for both the students and the teachers, and a knowledge building plan which includes awareness creation, mass sensitization, mock drills, including follow-up through regular school timetable. This would also include the use and regular maintenance of emergency equipment such as fire extinguishers. And lastly, they must review and monitor the plan, including the safety audit, availability of emergency equipment and materials in the right place in the right degree of quantity. So a school disaster management plan needs to be developed, which should define procedures to confine, contain, consolidate, and control the emergency crisis with inputs from the district disaster management authorities. So in that, the first issue that comes up for implementation of the safety actions is appropriate siting, design, and detailing for structural safety in new schools and repairing of existing schools. So in that, they should be located on a site that has adequate mitigation measures already in place against any imminent natural hazard. Existing schools which are already located in vulnerable locations should either be relocated at a safer site, or they should be provided adequate support to mitigate the effects of any natural hazard that may affect the area. All new school constructions mandate that they should include disaster resilient features against landslides, against flooding, flash floods in mountains, against earthquakes in particular, so that and all existing ones, retrofitting needs to be done that they become strong. There are prescribed designs by the various authorities. Even NDMA has taken out training of masons for constructing earthquake resistant buildings. So there are enough prescribed designs which are given out in various publications of the government, which may be adapted to accommodate safety and child-friendly features. Vertical expansion of the existing school should be curbed unless it has been certified by a civil or a structural engineer. Additional classrooms, horizontal expansion, everything should take into account the building standards.
Sorry for interruption. Your time is finished. You can wrap it up very shortly.
I'll just do that. So capacity building for safe school is a very important subject, because even if we put in structural and non-structural measures, the capacity building of both the students and the teachers is important. So it has to become the part of the core curriculum, which need to be taught at every level. And enough mock drills and practical training needs to be given so that the school children know what to do. Peer education and use of child-friendly methods also goes in a long way as a time-tested strategy for imparting specific knowledge on disasters, and it reaches each and every student within the school. So what I have tried to give is what is the Government of India thought process and how it is implementing school safety initiatives in all the schools of the country, and it is paying us good dividends. So thank you so much, and back to you, Ms. Parisa.
Yeah, thank you very much for all your impressive insights. And you also mentioned that there is a need for all the schools to integrate the resilience strategies to be more resilient and sustainable to cope with extreme weather events. Yeah, thank you very much. So now we have also one speaker, Abhinav Valia, wanted to just mention some hints. If you're there, you can also share with us your
Hi. Thanks, Farita.
yes, I mean, before he already mentioned, and Abhinav was also one of the co-organizer from Miyamoto International. So yeah, he also support us in organizing this UTC. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Farita. I'm audible, I hope.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so this is an absolute honor, to be the part of this panel, but quickly I will share one of the dimension which I feel very important, that is knowledge management, which Dr. Syed Abid also mentioned in his talk. Knowledge management, it's is a buzzword. So, but it need to be deeply understand for the city to city learning, what I believe, and I'm sharing this because this is part of my PhD research also. So knowledge management, mainly we focus on the documented knowledge. And when we talk about the knowledge, it's in majority, it is the documented knowledge, but it is very much important, in my opinion, to capture the human knowledge, whether it is of community, whether it is of the officials or the children. So that play an important role, because according to the research, documented knowledge is the tip of the iceberg. So, any organization has 90% of knowledge in the mind of its officials. So when we talk about learning, so this angle is very important to understand that how to capture that knowledge, how to disseminate that knowledge, and how to utilize that knowledge for the disaster risk reduction, whether we are working on health sector or children's sector or any sector, WASH sector. So this is very important to capture that tacit form of knowledge. And of course, explicit knowledge is very important, but this should be complemented by the tacit knowledge, which is hidden, which is intangible. Those are the challenges, but that is an important aspect which I understood in last 4 years doing the research on this topic. So I believe if we focus on that and if we have the framework, so definitely this will aid to the disaster risk reduction, and it will improve the resiliency. Yeah, over. Thank you so much, Parisa.
Thank you very much, Abhinav, for your insight and inputs. Thank you very much. Behram wanted to also say something, but before you say something, I'm saying that Ramez Ahmad already raised their hand 1 hour ago, so I wanted to actually give a floor to him. Ramez, do you want to share with us something, comments or questions from our speakers, please? Please go ahead.
Educator. Yeah, I'm basically an educator from Kashmir itself, and first of all, feel privileged to be part of the whole school safety project, which our project director Sumagra Shiksha Abhiyan, he just mentioned that very ambitious and very much well taken by educators on the ground. Alpha and UNICEF have been really championing this cause, and I have been very much thankful that I was also being part of the project. This was just a comment, but my question while listening to Dr. Syed Abid Rashid Saab, who is CEO ERA, was that, and also echoing what Feroz was talking about schools from Ladakh. And my question is that we see that how construction and how really school infrastructure is being conceptualized and actually done in Jammu and Kashmir. And talking exclusively about Kashmir because of our typical geographical location and climatic conditions, and we feel that the children really are at the end, bearing end, that we feel too cold during peak winter seasons, and the climatic condition doesn't really make it fit that our schools look like that. I was in US on my Fulbright fellowship, and I observed in those schools, in many of those schools, that the school living condition, the whole environment is so conducive to the learning process. School is not just lavishly designed, but it is very comfortable. It is very much helpful to maintain the continuity of education. It is centrally heated. Not just that, it is very much a locally designed prefabricated kind of structure made of wood oftentimes I saw. So can we really conceptualize that kind of school infrastructure in Jammu and Kashmir? And like sir said, that we can really have some islands of excellence, some schools really to showcase, if not because of some funding constraints and other things. But if you can really demonstrate to our people outside that this is how really our school should look like. And yeah, this is my only question to all of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, who wants to answer this question? Is there any?
Yeah, I'll answer Mr. Rameez Ahmed's questions. So Rameez, in fact, we are trying to make some exemplar schools in Jammu and Kashmir. And recently, Government of India has launched a new scheme called PM Shri scheme, Prime Minister Rising Schools in India. So that will be the role model schools for launch of new national education policy, as well as for the safety, security, and the new initiative in the school. So that they will come up within the next 1 or 2 years as role model schools. They will be like one school in each block. So we expect to have better model schools in the near future.
And sir, I also welcome you to my school itself, because that was the school really which championed. In fact, that's the only school having its own disaster management plan, and the whole activity is really being done and by the students. And I can really say with pride that I helped those children to really build upon the whole school safety concept. And also now I'm working on the social emotional learning part of the students as a separate project in my school. But I definitely need your blessings and your
I will wish to see that soon.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Great. Mehran, you wanted to mention something or asking a question from our speakers?
No, just quickly a comment. I know it's been a long day. We started early in the morning, but what an event, and what lovely discussions and insights from all wonderful speakers. I just quickly wanted to share what State Project Director also shared. So Major General M.K. Bindal sir, he was talking about the different things, and I was really happy the things Major Saab mentioned. And I'm proud that Alpha International, under the guidance of Project Director Samagra Shiksha, together with UNICEF, we have exactly done what you were saying, sir, and the peer educators. And we are proud. I think we would be the first ones in the country to have this very detailed school safety manual developed under the dynamic leadership of Project Director Samagra Shiksha, which basically covers everything, the safety of children 24/7.
Yes, I will like to add that Mr. Mehran Khan from the Alpha International is drawing great initiatives in our schools from the school safety concerns. Be it the training of the teachers, be it the students, providing the kits, school safety kits. So wonderful initiatives are being taken up by the Alpha International, and all appreciation and gratitude to Mr. Mehran Khan for that.
No, thank you so much, sir, for you being very kind. It's all your leadership. So I was saying that Major General M.K. Bindal, because he talked about all these issues, and sir, you talked about fire extinguishers, you talked about 24/7 safety, because the school safety does not only, we don't only talk about the disaster risk reduction, we have more components in school safety that which we have touched, because when we started, we called it Jammu Kashmir Comprehensive School Safety Program. But then in the month of November 2021, we aligned it to the ministry, calling it Whole School Safety Program, which is basically safety of children in schools, at home, coming to school, going back home, and it covers gender-based violence, violence against children, we have menstrual hygiene management, we have water sanitation and hygiene. So basically it's very exhaustive and holistic thing, and peer educators and school safety kits. And this all has been possible because I don't want to talk too much about school safety. I want to talk about a wonderful model that we have in place in Jammu and Kashmir. So Alpha International is a local organization supported by UNICEF, and then the collaboration we have with the Directorate of Samagra Shiksha, Department of School Education. So this model has really worked well, and we are proud that we have already printed 94,000 copies. Samagra Shiksha has done that, and it has reached to every school in J&K, and we have trained teachers at district level and created a pool of master trainers, resources, and everything. So all thanks to the state project director and colleagues from UNICEF that we could develop this model, and so far it has been very successful. I just wanted to share that as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mehran. I saw one question pointed to Mr. Seidel, but I saw that you already answered it in the chat box. If you want to talk more about it, please, you can share with us some points here. Mr. Seidel, yeah.
Yeah, well, the question was about how longevity, how sustainable, how long-living are such kind of citizens' initiatives or NGOs? Well, from Caritas Germany's perspective, we are working for the last 120 years in this field. So it's a sign that NGOs can be quite long-lasting if the conditions are there. A very important point there is what I mentioned is the cooperation between government and NGO. One reason for Caritas Germany to be such a long-living institution is that precisely the cooperation with our government is quite intensive. 80% of our funds in Germany come from the government to do these services, which otherwise public servants would have to do, which would be much more costly for the government itself. So it's a win-win situation. We have a set up as NGO, which is slightly more dynamic or flexible than government structures, which are bound much more to legal and administrative procedures could do. So the idea is to complement each other, and everybody has to see where is the best field for its work. It's recommendable to the government to see which kind of NGOs can complement their work. As I mentioned, in the socialist times, the government were quite self-reliant only, not relying at any, well, this is one of the experiences of East Germany. No? If initiatives of the civil society were completely stopped and the government was doing everything by itself or even not doing it. No? So I think this is one of the big advantages of such liberal or open democratic societies like India or Germany, that there is space for these civil initiatives. In India, of course, well, there are positive and difficult aspects actually in this setup. But also looking at the Indian context, you have a very beautiful Panchayat Raj system, at least at village level, where you have such kind of village assemblies and options for direct democracy and people's participation with the government. Beside this NGO government cooperation. So the idea is to see, well, who has which kind of obligation, which kind of right, and should play which kind of role. And I return to the subsidiarity principle. Whatever people can do by themselves without the government, well, let them do it. Definitely certain obligations can only be fulfilled by the government. Then, of course, it's the task of the government. And if the government doesn't perform, it's task of the citizens to push the government to fulfill its duties. But it's also the other way around, that the government has to say, well, citizens also have their responsibilities and cannot just delegate all their tasks to the government. So it's a bargaining process of all these stakeholders, actors, to find the right way also of answering such complex challenges as earthquakes.
Yeah, thank you very much for answering this question. I'm seeing that Firoz, again, raise your hands. Do you want to share with us something? You have 2 minutes to share with us if you want. Are you there? Okay. Ramiz, you raised your hand again, or this is from previous? Okay, anybody else has any question? Anybody want to add something?
Yeah, can I come in, Parisa?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I've been away, had to just step out for another physical meeting. And as we come to the end of the day, just would like to take this opportunity to thank each one of you, each one of our distinguished speakers, panelists, our participants for joining in. And just wanted to express how rich session this has been to learn, and not just to learn, cross-learn. I've probably heard more views, opinions, and kind of pointers in today that I have probably done in the last couple of years. And when we work on school safety, sometimes we also kind of are so focused in the whole the business of school safety per se, that we sometimes, like Abid Saab was just saying, to be working in silos. We don't really look beyond. And one of the things that Mr. Deepraj also raised about having, we have been constantly working with teachers and seeing, we keep saying that school safety is everyone's business, but we're focusing mainly on teachers and students and community members. We focused on very important aspect, and that was the engineers, the planners, and non-teaching staff as well. So that's also learning from us for us today. So I think it's this whole collective knowledge, and also for the sake of our participants and our speakers, that this is not going to be a one-off event. We also wanted to share, as Parisa Mehta also appraised you, that there will be an outcome document that will be coming out from this consultation, and this is really a one-off event that will trigger a series of other actions that we hope to plan, and we will definitely be taking up these suggestions, the comments from our distinguished speakers and panelists, how we can do better in terms of taking the agenda of resilience forward, how we can embed and integrate this into our programming in the future. And of course, UNICEF itself has a whole body of knowledge. I think a lot of our speakers today talked about collaborations, convergence, and complementing each other's work. I think every agency has their own kind of not just the mandate, but also the kind of their strong areas. Like, we cannot do what the government is doing, or the civil society cannot replicate what the government is doing at that scale, for instance. Or UNICEF, what the role of UNICEF could be as a technical lead agency, or we cannot come and work as efficiently probably as the private sector can possibly do, because their focus is on the bottom line. So I think we have today here representation from the government, civil society, UN agencies, private sector, and I think it's a good collective here today, that everybody's hearing out each other. And I think this is the first step towards convergence. First, we listen to each other's ideas and give space to each other to talk and discuss, take a leaf from each other's books, and then go on and work. And I hope that this collaboration, this convergence, this exchange of ideas continues beyond this consultation here today, and remains with us, and we can actually act it out in our works from here on. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Seidel, do you want to add something? You have 1 minute, and then I can wrap up the session. Thank you.
If you give me an opportunity,
Okay.
I would like all of you to see this.
Yeah, please.
This small short video. I'll share my screen, and so do let me know if you hear this.
Not yet. No.
Not yet. Are you able to see my shared screen?
Yes, but we are not seeing the video.
Hold on. Just one second. I'm on a VC. Sit. Can you hear this video?
Not yet.
It's playing, sir.
Now, yes.
Yeah, so this is just a very rudimentary video of the kind of schools that we have got done in the remotest corners of J&K. These are schools where people did not send their kids to. These are new schools that have been formed, and after these schools, bright, nice spaces for these young children, boys and girls, to come and look up to and engage in terms of learning outcomes. Beautiful spaces. So I'll share a better video with some people here. I can see some gentlemen from the UNICEF. Mehran is there. Danish is there. The project director, Samagru Shiksha Abhiyan, is there. So I'll send you better videos so that you can possibly replicate some good learnings and also improve upon what we have already done in terms of this World Bank project, this building as learning aid. I've talked to these kids myself in Jammu, in some of the remotest corners of Jammu, where kids did not go to school because they found the building so horribly bad looking. It wasn't an attractive place to go to. Now they are, they love going to school, play around, and that's what. So that is what I wanted to share with all of you towards the end.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Sir,
much.
Sir, these schools look really attractive and beautiful, and as an organization, we'll be happy to further support in terms of trainings and capacity building. If anything is required there, we'll be happy to offer our support, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zeidel, do you want to add something quickly?
Yeah, well, when I was invited to this discussion, my first question was, well, what is the relation between Mannheim and Jammu Kashmir related to earthquakes and school buildings? We are in touch with organizations in Nepal after the earthquake, rebuilding schools, and we are actually in touch with an organization in Darjeeling on this earthquake preparedness. And I think there is a lot of possibilities for exchange between Jammu Kashmir and precisely these two other locations close by, which have a similar cultural background and very similar, maybe also geological background. So I'm wondering who is promoting such kind of exchange of experience between these close by organizations, areas which have a huge variety of different experiences, which could be very useful for these discussions in all these areas, in Darjeeling, in Nepal, maybe in Himachal Pradesh also, as well as in Jammu Kashmir. Who is promoting such kind of exchange locally, regionally?
Anybody want to answer this question? Mehran, maybe you?
So a couple of things that I would like to share. One, that UNICEF, certainly because they work in other states and other parts of India, and then our host, Fair India. So we are a lot of civil society organizations, international organizations, UN agencies being coordinated. There are regular events that are being coordinated by Fair India. And UNICEF, certainly, for example, the school safety program that we are implementing in Jammu and Kashmir. But we have taken some best practices from other states that UNICEF had shared with us. For example, in school safety, we have some beautiful model called Safe Saturdays that we adopted from other state that UNICEF is working. It's like a plan for the entire year, 52 weeks, like in addition to the regular curriculum that's being taught in the schools. So I would say certainly UNICEF and Sphere India can be the catalyst to promote such kind of coordination and cross-learning between UTs and states.
Yeah, Thank you very much. So we are already run over the time. So I would like to conclude this lab. So based on what we discussed in different labs and of course in opening session, there is evidence that we have to take immediate action to increase the resilience of school buildings, which is the urgent need. So based on that, I think I already listed the potential action steps to effectively adapt to climate change and enhance the resilience of school buildings, as well as achieving SDG number 11 and 13, which are foster regular knowledge exchange and sharing of best practices with different stakeholders, develop and implement capacity building programs to enhance the technical, managerial, and leadership skills to stakeholders involved in school building resilience, and collaborate on the development and improvement of policy and regularity frameworks related to school buildings. We heard it a lot that we have to somehow integrate the school, increasing the school resilience into the policy, and as well as foster innovation and technology adoption for enhancing school building resilience. We heard it a lot from the different speakers, and also engage with local communities, most importantly, and involve them in the decision-making, planning, and implementation process, and also develop and implement monitoring and evaluation mechanism to track progress, assess impacts, and identify areas for improvement, and collaborate on resource mobilization effort to secure funding, experts, and support from various sources, and most importantly, collaborate on advocacy and awareness campaigns to raise awareness about the importance of school buildings resilience, and advocate for policy change, investments, and community participation. And of course, another important point is establish monitoring and a review mechanism to assess the progress of the collaborative effort, identify challenges, and make necessary adjustments. And last but not least, collaborate on documentation and knowledge management efforts to capture and share the lesson learned, best practices, and success stories related to school building resilience. So finally, I would like to express my gratitude to all our esteemed speakers and participants from across the globe. Thank you for your engagement and valuable contribution during this UTC. So your insights and perspectives have enriched our discussion, and I have personally learned a lot from you. I would like to also extend my sincere thanks to Sphere India team for hosting this UTC with collaboration of UNICEF India. Thank you very much, all the team. Thank you very much, Danish from UNICEF. And also thank you very much, Mehran from ELFA, and Abhinav from Miyamoto. And of course, I want to also thank Mannheim City for their support to organize this UTC. And as we move forward, let us continue to collaborate, share knowledge, and work together towards building resilience and sustainable cities. And thank you all for your active participation. And we look forward to our continued partnership in shaping a better urban future. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And before we let you go, Parisa, someday, maybe this year, we would like to have this kind of gathering in person. And we'd love to host this conference in Kashmir someday in near future. And thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah,
definitely.
That would be great.
I concur with Mehran. This was originally supposed to be a physical one, but due to, I think, the time, we could not. We would have happy to, but we will host all of you over here. We'd love to have everyone over for the physical one. So
Thank you very much,
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, looking forward for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.